Hey guys, this is Sniper Wolf 1001 here, and welcome to another one of my unboxing videos. And here I picked up the Metal Build Freedom Gundam. And as you can tell by the box, this is actually the Prism coating version. Right down here it says Freedom Gundam Prism coating version. Also said on the side of the box as well. And the Metal Build Freedom Gundam, this thing actually came out in 2012. And I believe that's when they first released this specific version, the Prism coating. And, it was released in limited supply, so you can't really get... I don't believe you can get these from any stores. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these have all been sold out, so the only way you can get these is if you buy them from someone else online. And when they released back in 2012, I believe they were for around $200 or something like that, so that's a pretty high price for this figure. But obviously now, if you try to get it, since it's not really available, the price, people are selling it for a lot more, usually around like $400, $600, which is really ridiculous. But yeah, I got the Prism version, and Bandai has actually did a re-release of this version, but I mean not this version of the Metal Build Freedom, but it's not the Prism coating version. It's actually I guess a less shiny version of the Prism coat, but it's still a metal build. But anyways, onto the figure itself. In this video, I'm just gonna do a quick unboxing, and then I'm gonna do a review on the metal build. So I'm just gonna open this thing up real quick. Alright. So out of the box, we get an instructional manual, I believe this is what this is, for the Metal Build Freedom. Yeah, so it's pretty much showing you how to attach on a lot of the parts here, certain features, like the handle on the shield, and I guess the stand arm and all that other good stuff. Of course, like flipping around his weapons and stuff like that. So like all of this stuff is pretty cool. Alright, so with that box open, as you can see, we get a few things here out of the box. Here we have the Freedom's wings, and this little container here, and I believe these are attachment parts for the stand. We have a variety of hands here. Of course, we have our usual open-palmed hands for some action poses. We have some, I guess, holding hands for his beam sabers here. Looks like some more holding hands, or trigger finger hands, I guess. And I guess that's another piece for the stand there. And then down here, this would be the stand base, and I really love the way that the stand base looks, like how they, it kind of looks like the Freedom's in its docking bay inside of its hangar or something like that. Like they have a lot of, I guess, the catapult launcher system that the Freedom would be standing on there. And of course we have the ZGMF X10A, Freedom Gundam, and then, yeah, pretty much what Gundam stands for. I believe they had like a bunch of different meanings for it in the series, but that's one of the meanings there. We have a little baggie here with some beam saber effect parts. And then right here we get the Freedom's shield. And of course this would be the stand arm, and this is a pretty big stand arm. And then of course in this bag we have the Freedom's beam rifle. Some beam saber handles here in this bag. And of course the freedom is locked in here with some styrofoam. Alright, so here we go. This is my first metal build, so I'm pretty excited. I'm actually kind of scared to move this thing around. Let's get this off the table. Alright, so here we have the metal build prism coated freedom. And this thing is just really, really cool. Like, this thing is very shiny, as you can see here. This thing is just coated in a very nice, almost metallic prism paint. All of the whites, like, every color on this thing just shines very nicely. And it almost looks like it just walked straight out of the anime in terms of how shiny it is. Like, this figure definitely outclasses a lot of the other figures that are out there. Like, this is a very impressive figure. Here's a close-up of the face. And then, of course, I like the little detailing here on the arm. They have the, I believe that's supposed to be Zaft. Yeah, and Zaft here on his other shoulder. So they have some markings here. And, of course, down here we have the Freedom's model number ZGMF X10A. We have some, like, 101 down there on the leg. So I like how they have some imprints there on the body. Alright, so anyway, let's get on to articulation. So we'll start from the bottom up. So with the feet, it seems that the foot can tilt down about that far, and then goes up about that high. And then, as you can see, you have a bit of range of motion here on the foot, and the foot moves independently of the heel. We have a tiny bit of movement here with this little piece here just above the foot. On the rear, we have the little flaps here, which can extend out to expose the little thrusters on the legs of the Freedom. There we go. Thrusters are kind of hidden there with some silver. And then now onto the legs. Moving the leg up with the side skirt here, just move that out of the way. And the leg's a bit stiff, but if you'll notice right here on the knee, there's a neat little mechanism here where if you tilt the leg up, it actually extends out. And we expose some metal on the inside here. And I believe the knee goes up about that high on this figure. And here we can actually pull the leg back a bit further. It can go all the way under here, as you can see. So the leg has quite a bit of movement. It can coil all the way back just like that, which is pretty impressive. And then, yeah, this figure is actually quite stiff too, with all the metal. I'm actually kind of afraid to move it around because I don't want to break this thing. It's a pretty expensive figure. But moving the leg backwards, of course we have the little rear skirt here, which can move up and down. And the leg, I believe, goes up. I think it can go up a bit higher than that. I think that's about as high as the leg can go. So that's pretty nice. I don't want to push it any further. And some in and out movement if you move the side skirt out of the way. I think the leg goes up about that far outward, which is pretty decent. And then onto the front skirts here, we have some movability. These can actually pop out And if you move them in and out, you can see that they actually move individually of each piece, which is a little neat detail there. And then, of course, onto his Xiphius railgun. Of course, we have some swivel action on the side of the hip there. And, of course, the railgun is collapsed in, so you can just separate and pull these parts out. Like that. And, of course, you can pull the top part out. And there we go. Here we have the railgun nicely extended like that. And of course we have more of that shiny reflective paint, which looks very nice. With the railguns, another feature here is that this is actually a handle that you can pull out. As you can see there, you can actually, just swivel it out. You can also do it on this side, but there's not really any point in doing that. But essentially, if you had your holding hands, you could rotate this back and then twist this. And you could essentially, with your holding hands in, you could have the freedom holding onto the railgun like that, which is a pretty neat feature there. Just collapse this back in, and it snaps into its spot there. Alright, so now onto the chest. For some downward posability. The chest goes down about that far on this figure. I believe that's about as far as you can get it. And then going backwards, he goes back about that far. And for swiveling, I believe it seems like the freedom goes about that far to the side. And now onto the arms. Bending the arms forward. It seems like we have some nice articulation on the arms here. It can bend all the way up to the shoulder. And of course, the arm joints are still pretty stiff. And then going outward, the arm seems to go up pretty damn high. It actually looks like it can go up a bit further, but of course the head is blocking the way. And we have some movability on these joints here. Of course, this spins around, but there's actually a moving joint right there in the wrist, which is neat. And then, of course, like you saw earlier, the shoulders, these parts can flip up, expose the underbelly there. And with the arm, you can actually shoot the arm up straight like that. It's pretty nice. You have a lot of posability there. And of course, if you wanted to curve it back, and yeah. And then now onto the head. The head, you can actually do a full 360 with the head, of course. And looking down, the head goes down about that far, and up about that high. So we got some nice movability on the head. And these V-fins here are very sharp, but they also seem like they're pretty fragile too, so I definitely don't want to mess around with those too much. Alright, so that pretty much takes care... I think that takes care of everything on articulation for this figure. So now on to the weapons. Alright, so here we have the Freedom's beam saber, and just like the Freedom, This actually has some nice detailing here. Again, it's just as shiny. It has that prism coating on the beam saber itself. And of course, the effect part here mounts into here. And there we go. We have a very long effect part beam saber here. It's pretty nice. Of course, we have that standard, very translucent pink color, and it's very smooth. Alright, so another thing about these beam saber handles is that right here you'll notice that there's an indent here on both sides, and if you actually take the figure, move his arms out of the way, they'll actually fit right into here. You want to actually line these parts up so that they're sideways, and then press down, and there you go. They snap right into place, and they hold in there nicely. So the Freedom can have his beam sabers mounted in when they're not in use, which is pretty nice. Alright, so yeah, with the beam sabers again, and beam saber handles, on the opposite side here, they have those little clips, and with the other one here, you have that one on the other side, and then you can just clip them together. You need to apply a bit of force to them, but there you go. You can connect them end on end just like that. And then double end the beam sabers, and again, yeah, very long weapon, pretty much just like the Robot Damashi Strike Freedom. But then of course, figure with his beam saber, and yeah, his hands do a pretty good job of holding the weapon in. They lock in very nice and tightly there in that grip. Very nice. And again, this blade is just very, very massive in size. And it grips the weapon nicely, even with the additional weight of the second beam saber. And then of course we have the Freedom's beam rifle. And again, very good detailing on the colors here. Very shiny. I like the blues and the kind of dark silver. And the barrel of the gun looks pretty good. So does the scope. And then right down here, the little detailing here on the handle. We actually have a movable handle. As you can see, this handle can flip outward. So you can kind of have the Freedom gripping it from the side. And the handle can fold forward just like that. So you can just have him holding it from here. So we have a bit of movability on this handle too, and of course when it's sideways you can adjust its position. So the handle has a bit of movability, which is pretty neat. Another feature about the beam rifle is that right here there's a nub right there which can actually fit onto the back here, of course, of that slot there. So you can have when not in use, you can just mount the gun, the beam rifle right on. Just move his arm out of the way there. And it's a very long peg too. But of course it goes in pretty easily. And you can just mount the gun right onto his back when not in use, which is neat. Alright, so again with the beam rifle, we have the trigger finger hand here, and we're gonna have to fit this over the thumb. Alright, so just like that. And as you can see there, the hand locks in pretty nicely over the handle. And we have the finger just over the trigger there. Here we have it holding the beam rifle. And of course you can like rotate it around, do whatever. Hold it sideways, be a badass. And like I said before, with the beam rifle, if you were to pull the arms closer to the center of the figure, yeah, if you had the other holding hands in, you could pretty much have the Freedom wielding the beam rifle with both of his hands in. Now, onto the shield. Again, this shield looks very well designed. As you can see, there's a lot of attention to detail on this. The little slits there, right at the bottom. We have very shiny, kind of almost reddish black there, and then the red in the middle. And of course, on the back of the shield here, we have a bunch of mechanisms here. We actually have a handle for the for the Freedom to hold on to, and I believe this is a mounting point where you can mount it into the shoulders. So taking the figure here, if you notice on the back of the arms of the Freedom, we have these little indented joints there, and of course these would go into there, and it just snaps in like that. So of course we can have the shield displayed on the figure like this. So of course here we have the figure holding the shield from there, and we can just have him holding up the shield and shooting all at one time. Alright, so here we have the Freedom's wings. And of course, these are a very beautiful set piece in this collection here, because that shiny prism coating just looks wonderful on this. As you can see, it's very shiny, very sleek, very reflective. And with how shiny it is, it looks like it's straight out of the anime. And I guess for movability, the wings can move in and out like that. And one thing that's neat is that the wings appear to be quite rigid and not too loose. And that's nice because it pretty much means that the wings will maintain their poses quite easily. But anyways, onto unfurling the wing. If you pull the wings up, they separate like that. And the middle wing is actually connected to the top wing, so you won't be able to move it too far. And here, of course, the front layer of wings can move independently of the rear layer. And as you can see here, the wings are actually mounted into the sides of the plasma cannon, as you can see there. They're just clipped into the side there. So what you want to do is you want to pull the wings out like that. And then that gives you access to pull the plasma cannon out. And the plasma cannon's pretty neat. The color on it is just as good as every other thing on the figure. But if I pull this down like that, the plasma cannon has some nice movability. Of course you're going to want that since you're going to be displaying it firing outwards. But you can pull it towards the other wing as well. And of course base pose. That you just flip it out, position it like that, and the plasma cannon should rest on the shoulder of the Freedom like that. And it would appear that the wings actually have a bit of limited movement when they're attached to the plasma cannon, but as soon as you remove the plasma cannon, the wings can actually move a lot further outward, which is nice. So let's get this all on the figure. So you just collapse this back in, And of course, there's the mounting point right there, which slips into that. And they snap right in. Oh, and another cool detail on the wings here is that, of course, they have Freedom Gundam and CGMF X10A here. Again, some more decals on the figure to make the figure look a lot less plain. Onto the back of the Freedom, of course, 2 spots there, 2 spots here, 2 spots here, to mount these into the back. There we go. And with the wings finally mounted into the figure, this metal build just looks really amazing with the very shiny, very reflective prism coat that's just all over the thing. And one other thing about this figure is that this is actually kind of a hefty figure. It actually has quite a bit of weight to it. And the prism coat almost makes this figure a bit slippery, so it's kind of awkward to handle in that regard with the weight and the prism coat. But anyways, I'll get on to posing the plasma cannons over the shoulders. Alright, so here we have the Freedom with its wings unfurled and the plasma cannons out of the wings and pointing outward from the figure. And this is a very nice display. However, one issue that I actually do have with this is that, as you can see here, the V-fins on the Freedom are actually very long, and they kind of impede the movement of the plasma cannons. Like, you can't really have the plasma cannons resting over the shoulders like you should be able to. And same thing with this one. And, like I said before, these V-fins seem as if they're kind of fragile, so they're like I feel as if you don't want to play around with them too much or else they might break, especially if you're moving around the plasma cannons on them. So that is actually one issue that I do have with this figure, is that these V-fins do get problematic while posing these. Alright, so that should cover everything for this figure. Now for my final thoughts. Overall, I thought this was a really great figure. Starting with the good points first, I really liked how this figure looked visually. Like, obviously, with the prism coat, that just looked very beautiful on this figure with how reflective it was, how shiny it was. Like, the paint job on the entirety of this figure just looked really impressive. Even on the weapons and the accessories, too. Not only did I like the paints, but I also liked how this figure was built, too. Like, proportion-wise, I thought it looked pretty accurate to the anime. And I also really liked how this thing looked scale-wise too, when I compare it to a lot of the other figures I've collected, like the Robot Damashis and such. It was quite the sizable figure, and it also had a decent weight to it too. Like, it didn't feel very plasticky or anything. Like, I definitely do think that this is one of, if not the best Freedoms that are out there. Like, it definitely comes close to a lot of the model kits. I also really like the posability on this figure too. Like I said before, I'm not that familiar with metal builds. This is my first one. So when I first heard the words metal build, posability wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. But when I did take this thing out of the box and I started playing around with it, I was actually quite surprised at how flexible it was. And that was definitely a big plus side for me with how good this thing looked and how posable it was as well too. And I really liked how stiff the joints were too. Like, they weren't too stiff, but they had a lot of tension to them, so they definitely aren't going to be losing their poses anytime soon. Onto the bad sides, I only really had 2 issues with this figure. One issue was the V-fins. Like I said before, the V-fins are really long, so they make posing the plasma cannons quite problematic. You cannot rest the plasma cannons over the shoulders, and you can really only pose them in 2 extremes, either to the left or to the right. Like, you don't really have that nice middle ground where you can pose them, like, pointing straight out from the figure. So that kind of makes that kind of makes posing the plasma cannons a bit awkward, because you can only have them out to the sides, and the V-fins do appear to be quite fragile too, so you can't really play around with it or anything, so that is one flaw there. The second issue that I have is with the prism-coated paint. Whatever they use in the paint, it actually causes a bit of yellowing on the white spots of this figure over time, I think due to heat, but when I did take this figure out of the box, upon close examination, I did notice that there were some very small yellowing spots on the white spots of Freedom. Even on the beam saber handles there too, like on the corners, I did notice some yellowing. It wasn't that big of a deal because you wouldn't really notice it from far away. It's only really on close examination where you'd notice the yellowing, but the yellowing will become more apparent over time if this thing is exposed to heat, so that could be an issue over time. But yeah, I definitely don't regret buying this figure. It's probably my favorite Gundam figure that I've collected so far. And I definitely do think that if you're a Gundam collector and you do like the Freedom, this is definitely the go-to figure. Like, it's probably one of the best Freedoms out there. However, you're gonna be paying a lot of money for it, because like I said, unless you get lucky like I did, the prism-coated version is gonna run you down like 400 or 600 bucks. There is, however, the less shiny alternative, the re-release, which is around 200 bucks, which again, that's a lot of money for a figure of this size, but yeah, I really like metal builds now, and I do think I might be buying more metal builds in the future. Like, I've already ordered the metal build Destiny Gundam, and they've apparently just recently announced the Wings of Light for the Destiny, so I'm definitely going to be picking that up. I would really love to see a metal build Strike Freedom. That would be amazing for me, because I would buy that instantly. But yeah, that pretty much draws this review to a conclusion. So at the end of the video here, there's going to be a couple scenes with my Freedom in a few poses. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative, and I'll see you guys later.